So hello everyone. My name is Stephen Faulkner. I'm one of the cyber range coordinators here at GCU, and we are here with our last tech panel, Tech Unplugged for the year, and we have some very distinguished guests that will introduce themselves. But we want to make sure that you are engaged and you have enough time to ask any questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to ask that you first please introduce yourself, share your current position and your company.
Okay, hello. Thank you for having me. John Kalua here, Assistant Vice President of Technology for Grand Canyon University. I'm the Executive Officer in charge of technology for the university. Overall responsible for budget, development, project planning, and implementation.
Thanks for having me. I'm Shannon Morrisette. I work for the NFL. I'm a cybersecurity manager. So I've been with them for just a couple months, but prior to that, I was with the Arizona Cardinals for 15 years.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. My name's Anthony Grande, go by AJ. I'm the Director of Enterprise Technology for Player 15 Group, which oversees the Phoenix Suns, Phoenix Mercury, the Valley Suns G League team, as well as the Footprint Center. My roles and responsibility own the budget for the entire organization from a technology standpoint for all properties, as well as making sure that we set up for every game, every concert, and anything in between, but also running the day-to-day IT operations.
So we know in cyber, typically you have people that don't really start in cyber. So what we would like to know is how did you get started in your field and what positions led you to your current job?
Yes, I did not start in cyber. It's a pretty wild run for me. So straight out of high school, I was in that category of I wasn't sure what I was going to do with myself, and because of that, wasn't really feeling the higher ed at that time, and I started in the Navy. And through the Navy, I actually went through specialized training for circuits, technology. I mean, this is late 90s, so we're not where we were necessarily in the cyber world or anything like that. And from there, I did my time, and when I got out, I was a fan of technology. I was a fan of working with my hands. I was constantly staring at main boards, communication systems, and what have you, and got out, took my undergrad. And while I was actually doing my undergrad is a game design with a specialty in programming and AI. And that's a bit different, again, back in early 2Ks. And from there, from AI was a bit different 20 years ago. The big thing from that was I actually started part-time while I was in college working for GoDaddy back in the old years during the dot-com, into the dot-com boom, understanding systems, reacquainted myself in very old certifications. Back then there was the MCSE, A+, Network Plus, things that I'm not sure are relevant. They might be relevant today. And then from there, it just kind of took off through some freelance work. I was actually a freelance contractor for GCU when they were just starting back in 2010 on the relaunch. And I did a year's worth of work here, and I got approached. Hey, we'd like to bring you on board permanently. Are you willing to take a job here? And I did. And from there, I've climbed the ladder through technology within IT, eventually worked my way up to where I am now, constantly working with the IT department, and that's kind of how I got here.
Similar to John, coming out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I know I didn't want to do technology. I wanted nothing to do with it. My mom was in tech, my uncle was in tech. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So did a lot of odd jobs, a lot of things I found out I didn't want to do, like being outside in Arizona, working outside was not for me, especially in the summer. I was not going to do it. So finally bit the bullet, took some aptitude tests, everything pointed me towards either something in arts or science, specifically technology. So decided to just go ahead and do that. Went to a school that's no longer out or no longer working. It's, what's the name of that school? High Tech Institute. Went there, got my associates in networking, started working for the University of Phoenix Online when they were first becoming big, before they got in trouble. Probably shouldn't have said that. Just started in IT basically, just help desk support, worked my way up, became a supervisor, left there and wanted to really start getting involved in networking. So I was offered a job with Toyota when they opened their second data center out here. So I helped build out the data center for networking, racking and stacking switches, heavy Cisco work, just making sure that they were up and running and everything was good. I left there and started working for AT&T in their NOC, and I did not like that at all. It was just constant phone call, it felt more like a call center than actual IT work. And so I started looking around, and I got approached by what they called a headhunter at the time. Now they're just recruiters, and they called me and asked if I wouldn't mind working on weekends for a job ad. I was like, I can't do that. I have a family, don't want to work weekends. Well, do you know anyone that want to work for the Cardinals? Hold on, just a second. So asked my wife, hey, can I take this job? So I got lucky that route. It wasn't anything I was looking for. So got hired on with the Cardinals as a network engineer. As I was there longer and longer, cyber became more relevant in the world. And it was, well, since you're doing the network routing, switching, and handling firewalls, take this too. So just kind of worked my way up and transitioned from networking into cyber and made good connections. Decided to leave the Cardinals, took another job with a different company for a little while, and then was contacted by the NFL. They asked me to come aboard for them, and here I am.
All right, so different approach, but still kind of similar. So when I graduated high school, I wanted to be a CPA. Then 2008 happened. I wanted nothing to do with financing at all. So I went to my counselor at MCC at that point. I just stopped trying to play basketball for MCC as a walk-on. I said, hey, I need to get out of finance. What's something else? And she said, have you ever looked at networking? What? I said, no, but let's do it. You said it's similar to math. I went in and I fell in love with binary. At that point, I've only worked for two organizations my entire career. I was an account representative at a timeshare finance company running the Marriott timeshare portfolio. Got into networking, help desk job opened up, and I jumped on it. Did help desk for this company for 5 years, moved my way up into a sysadmin. It's a mom and pop shop, so you wear a lot of hats. Along there, right, I was learning sysadmin work, network admin work, cybersecurity, and did that for another 5 years before my dad sent me a job posting for a help desk job, and I was like, oh, what are you doing? Like, I'm past that. But at the very bottom, it said Senior System and Network Administrator for the MBA. Well, at that point, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to move to Secaucus, New Jersey. But I clicked on it. It was for the Suns. No joke, 4 weeks later, I had the job. I went in. This was 2017 with the promise that, hey, come in. We're going to have a remodel soon, and you can design and build a network. So during COVID, I designed the network you see in the Footprint Center. Built it, as well as the 5G Performance Center that's off 44th Street in Camelback. We did both of those at the same time. I mean, that's my career work. Every time anyone walks into that, including myself, any screen, light, HVAC, audio, I had a hand in that, and that's career life work. And now, fast forward, I'm now directing the team that is, there's 12 of us. We just built 2 new buildings in the last year. We built an HQ as well as another performance center for our WNBA franchise, the Mercury. So it's really kind of full circle, right? I've only worked for 2 organizations. You think Phoenix Suns, you think big. It's really a mom and pop shop. It really is like 12 people, taking care of 4 buildings, 700 full-time employees, another 1,000 part-time employees. But we don't operate like a billion-dollar evaluation company. So that's my story.
Such great experiences that you all have shared with us. One thing I wanted to ask for you all to expand on, some of you all kind of just went into how the opportunities that were placed before you. And sometimes some of our students, they know exactly what they want to do. They want to be in IT or they want to be in cyber. So what kind of advice would you give them for what jobs should they look for or should they accept? Because sometimes you may have to get a job that may not be exactly what you want, but it might help you get to where you're going.
Sure, that's a great question. I'm going to lean on my personal experience for some background, and I impart this to most people that I do talk to. While you're young, try everything that you find interesting. Period. I glanced over the job that led me to tech. On my way to getting where I was, I worked 6 different jobs. Everything, logistics, warehouse management, things where I could contribute technology until I found what was my daily fulfillment and passion. That is really the key thing. Now, at no point in time was I thinking, man, I want to be rich. I need to make money. That's not it. There's a variety of books that I could recommend about habits, about finding what works for you. I'm not one of the people that's just like, well, what's fun every day? Find what's fun every day. For me, I actually am driven by what challenges me. And a lot of that, and sometimes, and actually a lot of times, can be uncomfortable. It's not fun, but I love the thrill of the challenge, and I know that I'm up for the challenge, and so I do that. So what I try to do in the recent graduates that I've talked to and everything like that is be open to try things, and don't put yourself in that comfortable position where I kind of like it, and you find yourself 3 months in, 6 months in, this is not really it, but then you get comfortable with the paycheck. Try something else. That can't be overstated enough. I did work, I tried a business, I filed for bankruptcy. That's not a fun thing to go through. But through that, man, did I learn a lot. I learned, was I passionate enough about it? Was I into it? So you might know for sure that you love technology. You might definitely have a strong suit that might be your passion. But at the end of the day, you never know where that passion might lead you, and it might lead you to something that you didn't know about. And that's why while you're young, take the risks. Take the risks, get out there, try as many as you can, and know what you like to do. My degree kind of led me into my job field. My military training kind of led me into my job field. 20 years ago, I'm going to be in higher ed, installing classrooms and stadium gear. No, that was not. I found this. It found me, and it turned out to be a beautiful marriage. But that's kind of my recommendation in that world.
Mine's a little different. It's similar but different. When I started my family very young, so I was trying not to, again, follow in my mom's footsteps. So I did everything I could, very hard-headed. Everything I could to not do that, but at the end of the day, I needed a bigger paycheck to support my family. So I started this because not out of a love for technology necessarily, but I was good at it. So it was something I just really had to focus on and say to myself, this is what you need to do what you need to do for your family. But in doing that, I found out that I do have a passion for it. I would say that even if you don't love the technology, if it's something on the other side of the coin where you're good at it and you know you can make decent money doing it, if you can't, at the end of the day, if you can't enjoy doing what you do necessarily, this is going to sound kind of odd, try and be able to do it in an industry you love. I love football. I eat, breathe, sleep football. I played football, full contact football well into my 40s, just as a thing to do. And being able to do what I do, being good at what I do for the NFL, for the football industry, brings me joy like nothing else. At the end of the day, when I've had a hard day, I go sit in the bowl of the stadium, just look, this is why you're doing this. You know what I mean? So if it's not something you enjoy doing, like if you don't, like, should rephrase that. If it's not something you have a true passion for, at least try and find an industry that you enjoy doing that for. That would be my advice.
Man, that's a lot of great advice. I think for me, it's, my journey, I can't stress the importance of the 5 years that I spent in help desk, right? Being a sponge and having to learn the people side, right? The understanding the why behind what was happening, because most of the time your end users, your customers have no idea why it broke. Building that relationship, understanding what's under the hood, and then branching onto that, right? I can't stress how important that is. You have to pay your dues, is what I always like to say, right? Help desk allowed me to see what technology is truly capable. That brought me into being a sysadmin, right? Then I could take my skills from the end user experience to the system side and then branch off from there. But, unlike these guys, my path's a little different, right? In the fact of I got my associates in network administration, but then I turned it on its head and got my bachelor's degree in technology management with a project management focus. So I could learn how to speak to layman, right? Take something very, very technical and make it simple, but also understand the why and understand how we could build things for our customers and interpret that. Because, I mean, looking out in this room, how many of you would say you're an extrovert? Probably not a lot, right? You're all introverted. So taking that approach and becoming something that I was uncomfortable with has opened up so many doors for me. But I can't stress the importance of pay your dues, be curious, but also, look at what you would consider a weakness and see if you can improve on yourself and turn it. Because now I was introverted. I'm not. I enjoy these things. I enjoy coming to talk and sharing my experiences. And I think that's important for each of you to kind of feel out and learn on your own.
Awesome answers. So we understand the passion that you have for for the positions that you're in. My question for you is, what technologies do you use while you're at work, and what makes you passionate even more so about what you get to do at work on a day-to-day basis? Because I know it's not a routine. From what you all have kind of explained, it's not really every day it's the same old, but what is an average day like for you all?
Wow. I think I'm going to hang more on the passion and stuff, because if I sat here and list, I think this might go for all of us. If I had to list every single piece of technology that I use on a daily basis, we might be here a while. Let's just say it's the all-inclusive, every level of normal enterprise type software we interact with. But what actually drives my passion is problem solving, and the most common softwares that I interact with are all about big data and data analytics. And at the end of the day, my obligation to the people who really run GCU is return on investment, should we do it, all those types of things. And so from that, I use a lot of finance, I use a lot of things like that, but that's really where my underlying passion is today. And to kind of piggyback off what I started with in the last question, 20, 15 years ago, I was a raw engineer, and I loved doing hands-on, doing anything myself, and it's morphed to today. I now love waking up every morning, and I love, whether if it's a college or a department or if it's coming down from above, we have a business problem that needs to be solved, John, can you figure this out? And I'm always, yes. And I'm even really sure, like, can I do this? But I love that daily challenge of, we have a new business need and we need you to figure it out. Whether if it's redoing an entire enterprise business operation platform, or just we want to go a new direction and we need new technology. I love being on that forefront of doing the research. What's out there? What's the competition doing? How do we stay relevant? What's the most efficient? What's the best way to maximize the dollar value they're willing to spend? All of those types of things are what drives me to get up every morning, is that particular piece, because that's my current role. and it's, and like I said, it's more of 20 years ago, I used to micro solder on integrated circuits. And we were talking about this, and just the one quick thing. You've all seen a basketball game, okay? And we all have experience with when they mess with the technology right before the game. And our blood pressure goes up. But literally in the middle of a game, right before halftime, we managed to cut one of the connectors that runs the scoreboard to one of the goals. And I had 4 minutes to actually manually fix the connector in the control box. And I literally had the AD over one shoulder, the event coordinator over the other, and I'm in there soldering the points back into the box at halftime to get the goal back up. Wow. That used to get me really excited. I don't know if my heart can do that anymore right now, but that used to be kind of how I got into the industry. But that's my passions for right now.
For my current role, the main piece of software I use, just because I'm the main one building this out currently, is we're working on new sim. So I do that just about 24/7 currently. Previously, it was everything and anything Cisco, touching it, building it, designing it, racking it. That was my life. So I would just say, and kind of to touch on the previous question, just fall in love with learning, because that's never going to stop. The industry changes too fast. You're never going to know everything, and be comfortable with that as well. You're not going to have all the answers. As long as you can figure out and you're good at finding answers and admitting when you don't have them, but you can find them, you'll be good. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry. My passion. Kind of like John, I like fixing things. I like solving problems. It's different for me with cyber because I know that that problem can be something that's going to hit the news, and then your name's attached to it. Okay, am I going to lose my job today? Typically, it doesn't happen that way for where I'm at, but you're under the gun. It's kind of stressful, but at the end of the day, you know that you've been down that road. You've prepared for these issues, so in the back of your mind, you know you're going to get it resolved. So I really enjoy that piece of it, knowing that if this is happening, if there is a potential breach, I've done my job on the back end to mitigate their footprint so they can't go where they want to go, and we can get them out of the system. So I'm passionate about that, and also to be able to do that, again, in the industry that I get to do it in, knowing that my work, unnoticed by everyone else, on the back end is helping support and keep everyone in that stadium safe, helping keep all the players' information and all this data intact so that they're not having to worry about that piece. They can do what they need to do and entertain everyone else out here. So that's why I'm passionate.
All right, well, we'll start with the day-to-day. This week alone, the Suns have played back-to-back away games. I've had to support the coaching staff while they're on the road trip. We had a game at 8 p.m. last night, but we also had Sabrina Carpenter in the arena, right? Went from a concert, now the floor is down today because we have the Jerry Colangelo Classic tonight, right? So tomorrow, we have another concert, right? So my day-to-day changes, and I love it. I mean, I have my 8 to 5, my IT operations, but then I have everything else. When I leave here, I'm going to go to our performance center before I head to the arena because we're installing new technology that allows the team to basically track every shot that's being made or missed on a basket in real time. And it's going to output on an 85-inch television. But we were also talking earlier, coaches like things simple. Our GM refers to our coaches as technology infants, right? And if you think about it, a lot of these guys, not only coaches, but the players, they've never really had to do anything themselves, right? They've been top tier, talent or, and had the opportunities. So we have to make things extremely simple. So I get to play with a lot of cool tech just to figure out how I can make it so that my 7-year-old can do it. And if she can do it, Anyone can do it. And I think that's really important because we just need to make things work. So to piggyback on all that, my passion is finding complex solutions and making them simple, right? So it's troubleshooting. And I can't stress this enough. If you can troubleshoot and you have a troubleshooting mindset, I can teach you technology. I can't teach you how to troubleshoot. And I think that leans into be a career learner. Always challenge status quo. You know, and I mean this with all due respect. It's really easy to read and learn, but what's going to happen if something hits the fan? How are you going to react to it? Right? And that's the reason why I think it's important that you really pay your dues and have to be in those types of environments. Okay?
So in order to have that kind of mindset, what should students do now to prepare to get into those positions? Yes, we have classes, but what should they be doing outside of the classroom? Or should they do anything outside of the classroom to prepare?
Yes, do things outside of the classroom. And I think it's completely acceptable to understand this and know this, and I'm representing the institution of higher education here. We are probably now in a world more than ever where, yes, you need to know how to do things, but it's not what you know how to do, it's what you can do. Kind of piggybacking what he just said there. In a long time ago, and I don't know if they still have these, I remember college courses being like how to Google. And I remember being fascinated when I was going to college because Google literally had to train you how to specifically search for things. But to piggyback what he said, your greatest thing to develop is troubleshooting. In most of the time when we go back to the early questions of what inspires you and what motivates you and what gives you fulfillment, if you're passionate about what you're doing, usually you have that motivation to go and research to solve your problems. And that is really, really key. To kind of how to prepare yourself, I don't know if there's any better way to practice troubleshooting than to put yourself in an environment that requires it. Whether if it's an internship, whether if it's finding student worker work, whether if it's going and getting a temp job or a summer job or whatever. I see dozens of graduates every year, and GCU has this awesome community, right? So everybody wants to get a job at GCU, and I give the same speech every time. Like, unless you're just dedicated on service, because that's our model here, it's too easy to fall in love with our community, unless the community is your passion. I don't want to downplay that because we have an awesome community, but I get a lot of people with incredible resumes. Go out and crash the plane, man. Like, I want that. Like, it's go out and put yourself in those learning environments. Put yourself in those uncomfortable situations. One of the things that we've kind of mentioned up to this point of we all are in the same position of we get the call when something needs to get fixed. And I can't emphasize enough, what's probably our greatest asset is that we're language translators. We are the experts in extracting your information as a customer or an owner or a coach or something. Tell me what you need. I don't expect you to understand how I talk. That's that most people don't talk like us. But I can take what you've said and I can come up with solutions and then speak it back to you in a way that you understand. That can't be overstated enough. And I didn't get that outside of just working jobs after jobs after jobs and understanding how to work on my customer service skills, communication. Listen, I was right in that boat when I was just raw engineer. Somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm sure I'm saying words that make no sense to him. And that's pretty common early on. And so I just can't emphasize enough, while you're getting your degree is absolutely going to give you a leg up in the market, it has to be coupled with some level of experience, whether if it's volunteer work, whether if it's bridged in with something you've done out there. whether if it's a student-led project or whether, and your capstone projects I see are incredible. Some of them are amazing. Having that understanding of how to work within the workforce, but also being able to articulate what you've done within that workforce, it can't be understated. That's my biggest recommendation for people trying to get into the technology world.
I would say break stuff. Break it so you can fix it. Don't be afraid to break it because that's how you're going to learn and get that experience. I mean, don't break valuable things, obviously, things you need, but build it back up. Learn to be comfortable when something isn't working. If you can do that, you'll build those troubleshooting skills. You'll build that confidence so that when it does actually happen, you'll be okay. I'm keep mine short because John's was great. No, you were great. You said all the things I was thinking. So, volunteer work, internships. I would even say follow people on LinkedIn in the field you want to go into and see what projects they're working on, see what they're doing, ask questions. I talk to people on LinkedIn all the time. You know, someone just send me a message, hey, how did you get to do what you do? Are you guys hiring? Not necessarily, but here's what I can help you with. Here's what I can guide you towards. Here's what I've done. Here's the research you can do. To ask questions. Always ask questions. My kids used to always ask why for everything. Why? And I hated it, but I get it. Ask questions.
Man, I'm not sure I could really add much to that. No, I think these guys hit it right on the head. Be curious, be learners. Don't be afraid to break things. Because I've learned more from my mistakes than I have from my successes, right? I'll tell a quick story. 2001 NBA Finals, Game 1. First time we've had an entire bowl post remodel. The Wi-Fi goes down. Well, the thing that we didn't do was we didn't pressure test. We also didn't put a nap pool. So we had more people connecting and trying to go out, and we weren't ready for it. So I have the NBA, I got the teams. They're all yelling at me. Calm, cool, and collected. It was an opportunity. It was a failure in the fact that we missed it, but at the same time, we learned so much. Game 2 was 2 nights later. We had everything in place that we didn't have that again, right? And so that is an opportunity. So not every failure should be looked at as a negative in a negative sense. It's an opportunity to learn. It was something that was missed. It was an honest mistake. But how you react to it and how you react in the moment, those are the things that you learn to what they've said is, how did we get here? Well, I've broken a lot of things. So we were able to figure out what broke and how to get to the solution really quickly. We actually had a solution before the game ended. We just had to implement it after the game.
You guys are knocking it out the park. So I do have a question. With all of the experience that you've had, all of the jobs that you've had, what would be the greatest piece of advice you could give to someone who is wanting to get into the field?
I mean,
What's the greatest thing that you've learned? Let's make it a little bit easier. The greatest thing that you've learned.
is the hill worth dying on?
Okay.
Do not get sentimental. I can't emphasize that enough, and it's I do have the pleasure of interacting with students on a daily basis and young people, and I can just tell you with how fast technology is moving today, and I'll give a brief on how we analyze this. Not even, what was it, 16 years ago when was the first iPhone release? Maybe 15 years ago, 2009, 7. If that's your barometer of the technology life cycle, how often did they release a new phone? Every 2 years? Every 2.5 years? That's actually a decent barometer of how fast most technology life cycle was. So if you developed anything that was new or IP or anything like that, you were pretty good to get 2.5, 3 years out of it before you'd have to reinvent it because a competitor was going to catch you. You look at where we are today, and I've given this presentation, our technology life cycle is about 9 months. You create something new, unless it's AI, then you got about 30 seconds. Because now there is more money being invested into technology in ways we've never seen before. The one thing that will doom you from your personal growth and being part of an organization is trying to hang on to something that you should let go. And I can't emphasize that enough. Don't get emotional over something you built 3 years ago when the right idea is to rebuild it. That would be the thing that I can probably impart of what I've learned.
That's great, actually. I would say don't get too comfortable. If you are so comfortable with what you know and where you're at, that means you're not growing anymore. And if you're not growing, the way, like John said, as fast as technology changes, it's going to pass you by. You're going to be stuck, and it's going to be that much harder to stay on top of everything else that's happening around you. So I would just say, don't get too comfortable.
Wow. Yeah. So for me, it's humility. As an engineer, and we've spoke about being engineers, it's kind of a mindset, right and wrong, right? You don't live in the gray, right? Well, as you progress, you've got to bring empathy and the people element back, but you also got to have humility and admit when you're wrong, to their point, right? And for me, that was been the biggest lesson that I've learned, and I continue to learn, is, people first. We know tech, we can build tech, we can rebuild tech, but what you can't do is not forget the human element and have humility and admit when you're wrong and be able to have those conversations.
So before we go to questions from the students or the audience, I just have one last question. What is the coolest thing that you have done? I know everybody wants to know.
Like work related?
Work related, yes.
I'm gonna go back to the passion thing, and it's the coolest thing that I've ever done, but it kind of became repetitive. And for me, I was brought on to help build the basketball arena. And probably for the first time ever, I never saw a scenario where all of the work I'd put in we built that thing in record time. My piece was about 12 months. And I was given a pass to come to the first game. And that was probably the first face-to-face experience where at that time it was not that big. It was 4,500 people, but we packed the stands and 4,500 people were looking at my stuff. And that is a rare experience for IT people because we're in the closet. We're in an office. I just forewarning you, when they come out with annual awards for companies, very rarely does the IT guy ever get recognized. It is an unsung hero like type of a deal. When things aren't working, you're the first that's going to get called. But at the end of the year, when they look at everything going on, very rarely does the IT guy get like, yeah, no, you kind of saved our butts that day. No, that very rarely happens. So to kind of have that experience of now, I've been here when the arena was the tallest building. So I've been here and I have fingers on every single building we've built. So I drive into a place, and just full disclosure, it's why I'm here today. I can look at every building and have a story. And so just that acknowledgement of being with a place this long, helping build that's probably the coolest thing I get to experience. I mean, unless we're taking like skydiving off the list and like but like the weird things, but like it's the being able to see that what I have done contributed to something, and you can see the meaning on display. That's me here at GCU.
For me, like I said, I was with Cardinals for a very long time, so I got to experience and be a part of a lot of cool things that, from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, you were at Super Bowls, you did this, you did that, and concerts and all these things that we built out, which is great. But the coolest thing, in my opinion, that I have ever done was turning over a playoff game, flipping that into a college championship game in 24 hours. It was a lot of work, but at the end of the day, everything went off without a problem, no hitches, nothing happened. Great. And that was probably the coolest thing I've ever done, in my opinion.
So I talked about designing, building the network and footprint center. So to John's point, right? Being able to see fans come in and the smile on their face, that never gets old. But I'll take it one step further. Peeling back the curtain, basketball doesn't happen without the department I work in. We set up scoring, we set up the stanchions, we set up timing, the belt packs for the referees, all the comms to allow game pres to do what they need to do, the bench technology. There's so much that no one ever sees. They just come and they see the game. We do it night in, night out. And win or lose, we played a hand in allowing that to happen. And then, to his point, is being able to tear all that down and have a concert the next day. I mean, we have this year about 250 events, including the games and concerts, out of 365 days. That doesn't include any of the small events, any of the things that we do for our partners or charities or things like that, while still running a day-to-day operation. And remember, there's only 12 of us. So that is the coolest part, is to see what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it's a thankless job, right? And it's not like we're growing with the rest of the organization, because we're just really efficient at what we do. But those are the lessons of the failures that have allowed us to get to this point.
AJ, I know you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but for Shannon and John, how big is your team compared to the organization that you're working for?
No.
I mean, so if we're talking percentages, 0.0, maybe one more 1%. I don't want to speak on the numbers of what our total FTE count is here, but I can tell you, percentages, I'll be generous and say we might be 1%, but I doubt it. That's kind of how big the team is by contrast to the company as a whole.
It's similar. The NFL with the NFL itself, it is a huge organization, huge. When we are very compartmentalized in what we do. So, but even on that, from the cyber side of things, for ISO, we only have maybe 8 or 9 people, 8 or 9 analysts, and then 2 managers, a director, and then we have some individuals that are on the GRC side of things and policy and procedure stuff. But from an analyst standpoint, we only have about 8 or 9 analysts, which is not a lot, considering that we literally deal with the entire NFL, all the offices, which are 3 different locations, dealing with the clubs. We assist with things for them, all the international stuff, every Sunday, Monday, Thursday, Saturday sometimes, Fridays this year, which was odd. But with the Cardinals, it was similar to what AJ was saying. We had at the most, when I first started, this is just the IT staff in general, not cyber, none of that, just IT. We had 4 people, and that was supporting the stadium, the training facility, and all the other businesses that the Bidwells own. So very lean. And when I left there, we had six or seven total. So it runs lean. Just be ready for that if you enter the sports industry.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like I said, we've added 2 buildings. So I used to be the director of IT. We had a director of AV. We've now combined. So we are 23 individuals, but think the difference, we're all technologists, but they were always focused on the audio aspects of the arena. So right now, I say 12, we're 23. We are growing, but we have to now share, we have to mentor, we have to grow to let them know, like, hey, there's a lot more than what you do than just making sure the mics and the audio works. Everything that you are touching has IT related to it. Let's get you on board there too, because a lot of that staff has been there for 15, 20 years.
And real quick, just because I can't emphasize enough the importance of networking and teamwork. While my department is very small, we do manage millions of dollars worth of partnerships, firms, and outside help to be able to do this. They might not be annual or they might not be in the office, but there are problems. Like, listen, I'm not going to take 8 people and we build a building. That's not that's not how that works. I just want there is a network behind it of partners that work with the university. It's not just my office. So I want to make sure that was.
All right, now it's time for questions from any of the students who may have a burning question that I did not ask.
Hi guys, thanks for talking to us. So I know IT budgets are typically not what we want them to be or what we need. So how or what does that conversation look like when you're trying to push your budget to get more money for resources that you need?
That's a good question.
All right, so like I said, we have kind of shifted our approach at Player 15 Group, and how you can get to that point is really building a foundation. I can't stress the importance of metrics, quality, and resource management, but you have to be able to quantify that. So you actually have to slow down. You have to be very intentional. You have to take the time to document everything you're doing. Because if you don't, right, things just work. No one's ever complaining about IT because they don't see us unless something happens. But that also is the reason why the budgets don't always grow. But if you're intentional about those areas, the conversations become easy, right? You're not fighting for resources. You're giving them quantifiable data.
And just to add on that, if and when you get that budget amount, use that money. Don't, hey, I've saved the company $100,000. No, what you did was you proved you didn't need all the money you asked for. So make sure you spend that money on IT-related items.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. The one thing that was kind of hit on there is being able to quantify what you're doing. And I've you might have a solution, you might have a cool idea, but I can't, because I deal with ROI. I can't emphasize enough how there's no financial quantification to an idea. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, it's very much to the point. They're expecting the IT person to come up with a very deliberate plan on how to use a budget. And you're right. There's no IT person who runs the budgets that says, I found a way to not spend 25% of this. It's build it as you need it to and make sure that it's what the business needs to operate. One of the things that's kind of unique for me is we forecast technology budgets 5 years in advance. Even though I don't even know necessarily what technology we'll be looking at, but something that we all have to deal with is the system network. Am I doing it over time or am I doing it in one shot? Once you grow big enough, there's no world to just run some numbers. There's no world where we are this big as a campus and I pass something up the chain that says, I need to replace this entire infrastructure in one shot. Millions, millions and millions and millions. So your strategy ends up being coming up with schedules and plans and what buildings are being built, what buildings are being renovated, what type of new technology we're gonna need for food, for students. I mean, I don't know if any of you were here for the transition, something simple like going from coin-operated laundromats to, do you want to use a card? Like all of the purchasing technologies, everything that we do, we try to do an anticipation budget 5 years in advance of knowing where we're at, and it always changes. It morphs. It's 1 year we didn't have LTE coverage on campus, so we needed the network. Now I have Verizon on campus. So how robust does my network need to be for cell phone uses? So I mean, all of that has to be factored in on a very long time scale. And so it's, the budget always moves. And that's kind of hard. It's a hard question to get directly. So, and yes, there's never enough budget.
Never.
Thank you so much for coming. My name is Blessing Morales. Thank you for the valuable information. I just had a question. I had this instructor at Estrella Mountain. He's the lead of the Red Hat Academy over there, and he always stressed the idea, the concept of the A team and the B team. And I'm sure throughout your careers you've seen a lot of turnover firsthand. So I'm just wondering if there's ever been something that you've seen or maybe something you've done that has made you think, oh, that person is definitely on the A team versus like a B team, like something to, something that I could or we could do to keep us on the good side.
My team's not big enough to have an A or a B. I think that's a blessing if you can have resources that you can value that way. But to me, we've said it already. To be successful in my area, you have to be curious. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself into a single area. You want to make sure that you can wear many hats. And if you're wearing many hats, you will always be a high-level contributor, right? So don't be afraid to get into new areas. Don't be afraid to break things. Because at this point, technology, we have redundancies for everything. So don't worry about breaking it. Be curious. But hopefully that answered your question.
And I lost it. That was weird. Yeah, A team, B team. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of people, especially when you first start a new job, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to say anything. I'm just going to sit back and let things be where they are. Ask questions. Even if you don't feel like you can ask questions of your boss, ask questions of your colleagues, your coworkers. Just continuously ask questions. If you have a question, and if someone is unwilling to answer the question, research.
So, again, I don't think we have too much of a luxury of an A team, B team. So I think this is more of a, what puts you as a standout, or what puts you as something that would put you on a, if you would say, consistent, I can bank on you. The two things that I look for are the sense of urgency, and that can't be emphasized enough. The sense of urgency, and kind of, again, the willingness to kind of branch out and learn is the other thing. And it's when you're talking about as lean as the budgets of we are, I'm a very direct person. There's no questions. My responsibility as a leader to an employee is, you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and you know exactly where I need you when I need you. And by that, just by following through with the sense of urgency and putting in some forethought of just, okay, John needs me at 2 o'clock today, we're gonna be talking about this. Let me do some pre-work and some pre-thought into what we might do. You might be wrong, you might be right. But knowing that you're willing to have the level of, I'm gonna try and figure this out on a first pass and not wait, is huge. Because you have a lot of people out there that It's, you fall into the rut of clocking in and clocking out. Once you fall into that rut, you should be very nervous. If you turn into my shift ends at 5 and you're looking at your clock at 3:30, you should be nervous. You should be very nervous, because with the lean budgets, with the way we work, we don't have, you never know, I might get approved for OT. We're going to keep going. Having that flexibility, and being respectful of your time is important, but also just knowing there are opportunities to shine and know more. How are you going to be ready for them? I'm stealing a phrase from somebody, and I'm sorry, I don't know who it is, because I don't believe in luck. I believe in preparedness. And the more prepared you are when those opportunities shine, is the better you can put yourself in an A-team environment, if that kind of helps.
All right, thank you all. If you all have any additional questions, our guest panelists will still stay after for a little bit for a few questions. There will be food outside, but I would like to say thank you. This is our last Tech Unplugged for the year, and I personally just want to say there are a lot of people that make this happen. One of the people that I do want to bring to your attention is Jennifer Singleton. The food that we have, making sure that our guests are comfortable and they know where they're going, that would be Jennifer. We also have Joe, who does all of our editing of the videos, our student workers who put all of these tables and set up and tear down. So there's a lot of people that make this look good. But thank you all for coming and supporting the Tech Unplugged series. This year, we're going to try to make sure we bring you all good guests. We thank our guests for coming. You all did awesome. You had you had very different takes, but you had a lot of good, what I call gold nuggets to give to our students so that they can be successful. So thank you all, and this concludes our Tech Unplugged. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.